You were taught to lead with kindness. From childhood, they trained you smile, first forgive, quickly, give without asking. It was supposed to make you a good person, but in reality it made you vulnerable, predictable, weak. You walk into a room and think, if I show them I'm nice, they'll like me. They'll respect me. They'll trust me. But Machiavelli would raise a cold eyebrow, because to the one who waits, who watches before moving, you've already revealed your hand. You've already lost the game. Power doesn't introduce itself with flowers. In psychological warfare, the first move is rarely an advantage. The first to speak shows their thoughts. The first to reach reveals their need. The first to smile confesses, I want to be liked. And that's all the predator needs. You've probably done it. You've entered a new space school work or relationship and thought, if I show them I'm kind, they'll treat me well. But the strong never assume fairness. They never offer themselves before measuring the room, because the first to offer kindness puts themselves beneath the judgment of others. They wait to be chosen. They wait to be accepted. They wait because they have already decided they want to be seen as good. And in doing so, they abandon their most valuable asset, leverage. Machiavelli wrote that men are not moved by love, but by fear and respect. That generosity without control becomes a leash you wrap around your own neck. That the appearance of kindness is more powerful than kindness itself, so long as it's delivered after power is established. Watch a wolf enter a clearing. It does not announce itself. It waits. It measures. Only the deer steps into the open first. In diplomacy, courtrooms, job interviews, even friendships, the dynamic is set in the first impression. If you lead with warmth, you place the other person in the seat of judgment. You hand them the script. Here I am. Please like me. They will if they need something. But if they are predators, they will smile and file you under harmless, not respected, not feared, not even seen. Just dismissed. You think kindness makes you noble, but Machiavelli would call it a leak in your armor. In politics, the strongest man enters quietly. He watches. He doesn't smile. He listens. His silence makes others speak more. His stillness creates discomfort. And in that discomfort, they reveal themselves. You smiled too soon. And they saw everything they needed to take from you. The room may thank you, applaud your empathy, compliment your kindness, but you don't realize their comfort was paid for with your surrender, because power moves in silence. It doesn't ask for approval. It doesn't apologize before acting. It waits. The predator doesn't pounce on the loudest animal. It waits for the one who walks out first, the one who offers themselves, the one who's already bleeding and doesn't know it. When you give first, you tell the world, I want peace more than leverage. I want connection more than control. And those who seek to use you, they smell it instantly. They say kindness is free, but Machiavelli knew every kindness cost you something. And when it's given too soon, too freely, too eagerly, it costs you everything. You think the first move makes you bold, but in the game of power, the first move is always the weakest. Wait, watch, measure. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them chase your approval. Let them be the one to flinch first. Because when you never show kindness first, you create tension, and tension is power. And in a world of predators, power is the only kindness worth offering. Eventually, on your terms, when it no longer costs you control. They noticed your smile, not because it was warm, but because it was early, too early, and that was all they needed. In every room, there's someone watching, not for friendliness, but for softness, for signs of pliability, For the one who will give without being asked, apologize without being blamed, defend others before defending themselves. They watch for kindness, not to admire it, but to map it, to understand what you're willing to sacrifice and for whom. Machiavelli wouldn't ask who smiles the most. He'd ask who smiles first, because the first to smile often becomes the first to bleed. The predator sees the smile not as grace, but as weakness. You think you're being likable, but to someone looking for control, you've already played your role. The eager, the agreeable, the emotionally available. They don't have to ask if you'll say yes. They already know, because when you offer kindness too soon, you take away their need to earn it. And what is unearned is always undervalued. Remember that boss who always took credit, that friend who vanished when you needed help, that partner who demanded love but never returned it. They didn't become that way over time. They became that way with you because you let them. You led with kindness. They followed with control. The predator doesn't ask. It probes. It compliments you to see how fast you return the praise. It tests a boundary to see if you flinch. It makes a demand wrapped in a joke to see if you obey. All while wearing a charming face, because exploitation rarely arrives as cruelty. It arrives as flattery. It arrives as attention. It arrives in the eyes of someone who calls you different on the second meeting. And all they're looking for is proof that you need to be liked more than you need to be respected. And when you give them that proof, when you rush to give, to help, to accommodate, they know they've found a giver. A giver is useful. A giver is safe. A giver is a tool, soft, predictable, and always available. Until one day the giver breaks bitter and used, and everyone acts surprised. But Machiavelli would not be surprised. He would say, you gave them the sword. They only chose to use it. To someone, strategic kindness is a signal, a tell. They won't say it out loud, but here's what they think when they see someone generous too early. You want validation. You fear rejection. You hope being good will protect you, and they will use those assumptions against you again and again. Because in a world built on perception, kindness is currency. And no one respects currency that flows too freely. The ones who get taken advantage of always look the same. Kind, empathetic, always explaining, always forgiving, always trying to prove their heart is in the right place. But predators don't speak the language of hearts. They speak the language of leverage. You cannot teach them not to take advantage. You can only stop advertising yourself as someone who won't stop them. There's a reason the lion does not roar in greeting. There's a reason it watches before it strikes. It does not smile. It does not flatter. It waits. Because silence is control. Unpredictability is power. If you show too much too fast, they don't have to guess who you are. And once you become legible, you become replaceable. Worse, manipulatable. And make no mistake, the predator may be polite. They may wear a suit. They may say thank you. But every time you give without demand, you train them to take. Every smile, every compliment, every favor, before it's earned, shapes how they treat you. They see your kindness and they test. They see your pattern and they press. They see your boundaries and they push, not because they're evil, but because they can. And people will always choose the easiest path to power, especially when that path walks right up to them and offers help. Machiavelli didn't believe in cruelty. He believed in understanding the nature of people. And the nature of people is this: they measure you by what you allow, not what you say, not what you intend, not what you feel inside your heart, but by what you offer unasked. Kindness is not evil, But kindness without context is ammunition in the hands of those who seek to disarm you. And when you smile too early, when you show warmth before they've earned the heat, you give them everything they need. They mark you as someone who will say yes, as someone who won't fight back, as someone who believes the world is kind because they are. And that is the most dangerous belief of all. Because kindness is not protection, it's bait. You think your kindness speaks of confidence, but Machiavelli would tell you it speaks of need, because unsolicited kindness isn't a gift, it's a signal. It says, I need to be liked. It whispers, please don't reject me. It screams, if I'm good enough, you'll keep me. But power never begs, and those who have it never offer themselves without reason. You hold the door for them, you laugh too loudly at their jokes, you rush to comfort, to help, to prove you're the one who gets it. And you think you're building connection. But what you're really building is imbalance. The predator doesn't see kindness, they see hunger. Not hunger for food or money, hunger for approval. You want to be liked. And they know the one who wants to be liked is the easiest to control. Machiavelli would remind you that the man who offers what wasn't asked for is announcing his desperation. Why else would you give without invitation? Because you fear the silence. Because you fear being misread. Because somewhere deep down, you still believe that likability is power. It's not. It's currency. And when the other person doesn't need it, they pocket it and they own you. This is why some people only call when they need something. Why they ghost you until it's convenient. Why they ask for more even when you've given too much. Because your kindness made them think you need them more than they need you. And in power dynamics, that's everything. You show up first. You speak first. You care first. And they learn you're not giving from strength. You're giving from hope. Hope that if you give enough, they'll never leave. Hope that if you're kind enough, they'll finally see your worth. Hope that if you're always there one day, someone will be there for you. But Machiavelli didn't believe in hope. He believed in leverage. And there's no leverage in being predictable. You say, but this is who I am. I'm a kind person. And they smile because they know how the story ends. Kindness, when not measured, always leads to erosion. At first they praise it. Then they expect it. Then they resent it. Then they leave it for someone harder to get. Because the truth is brutal, people chase what resists. They stay with what they have to earn. They value what is not freely given. A man who offers everything before he's asked his time, his energy, his care is not seen as strong. He's seen as available, and availability without discernment is weakness. You gave first, so they believe they can take last. You made yourself the well, now they will return only when they're thirsty, and never to ask how full you are. Machiavelli understood something most people deny: power flows toward mystery, and kindness too early ruins the mystery. You became known too quickly. They decided your worth in the first 5 minutes, and now you're trapped, chasing their validation in a race they stopped running long ago. You believe kindness is noble, but Machiavelli would say it's strategic only when it's rare, precise, and delivered from a position of strength. Kindness should be a reward, not a resume, a gift for loyalty, not a down payment on respect. You say, but if I don't show kindness, how will people see who I really am? They won't, not until you learn to protect that version of yourself like a secret. Because when you give it away too early, they never believe it was valuable to begin with. They see your kindness, and they assume you give it to everyone, which means it means nothing. Machiavelli wouldn't tell you to become cruel. He'd tell you to become rare, to become the one whose warmth has weight, the one whose praise must be earned, the one whose silence speaks louder than their approval. Because when kindness becomes a pattern, it becomes invisible. But when kindness is earned, it becomes powerful. Not because it's loud, but because it's scarce. And the scarce is always chased. So ask yourself, why do you give to connect or to be seen, to serve or to be spared. Because if it's not strategic, it's confession. And in the language of power, every confession becomes a blueprint for someone else's control. You taught them how to treat you. Not with words, but with offerings. You said nothing, but your early kindness wrote the contract. A silent agreement they never had to sign. An understanding etched in unspoken terms. You will give first, they will receive without earning. And the more they take, the more you will justify it. It began with something small, a favor, a compliment, a sacrifice of your time. You told yourself, I'm just being nice. But Machiavelli would stop you right there. Because the moment you give first without demand, without boundary, you start to teach them. And people are always learning from you whether you realize it or not. You think your kindness builds goodwill. But in human psychology, repetition breeds expectation. Give once and it's appreciated. Give twice and it's noted. Give 3 times and now it's owed. The powerful never teach others to expect gifts. They teach others to earn access. You've probably heard the phrase, give an inch, they'll take a mile. It's not cynicism, it's training. When you show up every time without being asked, they stop asking. When you say yes to things that exhaust you, they stop considering your limits. When you forgive what hurts you, they stop believing they ever hurt you. Because to them, your kindness doesn't mean you're good. It means you're safe to ignore, safe to disappoint, safe to manipulate. You built that reality, brick by brick, gift by gift. And now you're trapped inside it. Machiavelli didn't blame people for exploiting others. He blamed the exploited for not reading the room. Because you can't control how others act, but you can always control what you reinforce. You reinforce the idea that you'll be there even when it's inconvenient. You reinforce the belief that your value is in what you give, not in who you are. You reinforced a dynamic where they expect and you provide. And expectations are prison bars built from repetition. They won't say thank you anymore. They'll say, why weren't you here sooner? They won't say I appreciate you. They'll say you've changed. Because you train them to see you not as a person, but as a resource. A well, a wallet, a therapist, a fixer. And the moment you stop giving, the mask drops. They accuse you of selfishness. They say you've become cold. They question your worth, not because you lost it, but because you stopped proving it. But Machiavelli would ask, why were you proving it to begin with? Why was your kindness a strategy for acceptance? Why did you offer peace before they even asked for war? Why did you think your value came from giving when power comes from withholding? The powerful don't teach others to expect. They teach others to earn. This is why they say no more than yes. Why they give only when it strengthens their position. Why their kindness comes like rain in a drought, rare, sudden, and unforgettable. You gave freely, so they drank without gratitude. And now you wonder why they don't value you. But you taught them not to. Kindness without boundary becomes obligation. Obligation without reciprocation becomes resentment. And resentment over time becomes your cage. They won't let you change because your early kindness created a role and they expect you to keep playing it. But roles can be rewritten, not with apologies, not with explanations, with behavior. You stop showing up. You stop over-explaining. You stop giving what hasn't been earned. And they panic because the giver is changing the script. And predators only thrive in predictable stories. Machiavelli would say, let them be uncomfortable. Let them chase. Let them wonder why the well went dry. Because only when they feel your absence do they begin to value your presence. You think pulling back makes you cruel, but it makes you clear, and in clarity there is control. You are no longer the giver by default. You are now the chooser, and choice, true strategic choice, is the foundation of power. So stop teaching them to expect. Start teaching them to to deserve. You think kindness makes you likable, but Machiavelli would say it makes you visible. And what's visible can be read. What's readable can be mapped. What's mapped can be controlled. When you give before it's earned, you lower the price of access. They don't even have to ask anymore because you've trained them that your warmth comes first, not after trust, not after loyalty, not after proof, but first. And that's the trap, because kindness when delayed is a reward. When given early, it's a bribe. You meant to create respect. You created expectation. You meant to build connection. You built dependence. You meant to show strength through love. But in the world of silent games, it looked like surrender. So what do the powerful do differently? They wait. They delay kindness until the timing turns it into leverage. They don't deny warmth. They deploy it with precision. Not because they lack empathy, but because they understand what scarcity does to the human mind. The unpredictable is magnetic. The hard to read is intriguing. The emotionally sovereign are feared and desired. This is why some people command respect just by walking into a room, not because they're loud, but because they're controlled. You can feel their self-containment. They don't smile unless they mean it. They don't offer unless it costs them nothing. And when they do show kindness, it stuns. Because it's rare, and rarity creates value. Machiavelli would call it delayed generosity. The act of giving not from need but from power. Not to be liked, but to remind them you could have withheld, but didn't. And that's what makes people lean forward. That's what makes them loyal, not your constant giving, but your calculated grace, because that kind of kindness holds weight. You don't need to become cold. You need to become deliberate. You don't need to stop caring. You need to stop offering your care before it's earned. Let others go first. Let them reveal their nature. Let them show you who they are before you give them access to who you are. You are not cold for withholding, you are strategic. You are not cruel for waiting, you are watching. And those who watch quietly are rarely manipulated. Machiavelli didn't preach heartlessness, he preached discipline. The discipline to withhold approval until it becomes influence. The discipline to give only what cannot be used against you. The discipline to turn kindness into a choice, not a reflex. Because the world respects restraint. So the next time you walk into a room, don't smile first. Don't offer first. Don't explain first. Observe. Measure. Let your silence introduce you. Let your distance create curiosity. Let your unreadability make them wonder who you really are. And if you choose to show kindness, make sure it's on your terms, not as a plea, but as a gift, because the one who gives last gives with power. In a world where every move is watched, kindness is never just kindness, it's information. When given too soon, it reveals hunger. When given too often, it creates expectation. But when withheld with discipline, it becomes powerful. You've seen what happens when you lead with warmth. They expect, they take, they leave. But the cold truth is simple. What people must earn, they value. You are not here to prove your heart. You are here to protect it. Delay your kindness, preserve your mystery, and let the world work for what you once gave away for free. If this struck a nerve, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below. Have you ever felt used for your kindness? Subscribe for more dark insights into the mind control and power